Hello and welcome to The Agent is In. I'm Nick and we're here with Cody and Craig. And today we're going to talk about some CFEngine policy questions that have come up at various times. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I just kind of looked back through some notes and things that I had, and I just kind of plucked out a few different questions that people had asked, kind of related to some policy stuff. So I thought we would kind of go over some of those today. You can see my screen? Yes? All right.
Yes. Yeah.
So one of the questions that has come up a few different times, kind of in different ways, was how can I get a list of specific key values from an array of objects in JSON? So let me pop this big enough to read.
Yeah. I can see it.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna actually shrink this one down just a little bit. So I've got some JSON over here. Actually gonna yank this out of this block over here. So I've got some JSON array. All right, so actually it was easier to see it this way for me. Okay. So we've got this array of JSON objects. I guess all these values are the same. We can change these values maybe. 3, 4, 5. And what was wanted here was like a list of, for example, these names. Like, how do I get a list of these names extracted from this data container just into a list that I could then iterate over in CFEngine? And I think that probably the most straightforward way to do this, or maybe the most direct way to do this, is to use the map array function. So let's see here. We'll say d names data, and then here we're gonna have, oh, we don't want data, we want a list, s list. So we want to maybe sort on this. Well, we don't need to do that yet. We'll do map array. And what we want to do is reference the data container D, the name. So we'll do D, and then this dot K is a special variable for this map array function, which is this key as it iterates over the array that it's looking at. And then we want the name for the key, right? So this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of internally as it iterates over it. And then we're looking at the names. So we're going to map that value of, expand out the value of that from B. And then we can do, well, we don't even need to do reports. I'll just adjust it in the block title. So we'll do extra ops, I think. Evaluated bars. Oops. All right. So I just ran this policy. This show evaluated vars is an option to CFEngine, and then I'm filtering it for variables that are in the default namespace in bundle main. I had to escape that dot there so that it didn't match any character. But you can see here we've got the D data container with everything, and then we've got this list of names. And this just happens to be in the order that it was iterated on, but you can sort that just by wrapping this with sort. So if we sort this lexically and run it again, now we've got our sorted list of names. But that's not the first way that I typically do this. Excuse me. One of my favorite things to actually use is an associative array. It gives you a little bit more flexibility because you can kind of define your data structure key by key, which means that you can apply different rules to each key that you're adding to the data structure. So often this is like the first thing that I reach for, and this is probably because I started using CFEngine long before we had data containers as a variable type. So this is probably a little small. Maybe I should make it bigger. So for this pattern, typically you just pull an index off of the data container. So we'll get the indices from D, and that should give us like 0, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to define my new one. What did I call that last time? Let me just look up here. D names. Okay. Come into here. Let's use the same thing. D names. And then, whoops. Here we'll do the index. And then we'll take the value of D name. Whoops. D I name. Oh, I wanted a list. Right. So that'll give me a new data structure. But then if I want to get the then if I want to get that into a list, then we'll do names, slist, get values from the names. So if I run this one, oh, look, it didn't work. Well, that's great. Oh, let's see here. That's right. Should be right. What'd I do wrong, Craig? Names. CD. Ah, not referencing the right index position.
Yeah, zoom it up. There you go.
There we go. Right here. So I had I, but I needed DI. There we go.
Right. Those are indices. Yeah.
Yep. And if I run that again, here we go. Now we can see, so we have each index position from this associative array. So names 0 maps to the 0th element of the original D data container. So Aurora, Orion, Luna, And then we have, again, just the names in the order of the iteration. And of course, the same thing applies. We can just sort this lexically if we want that to be a sorted list. If I run that again, now we've got our sorted list of names. But that's doing the exact same thing that we saw before. It's just it's a little bit more typing, so maybe the value of doing something like this isn't exactly clear. So let's go ahead and just show you what I meant by being able to kind of apply a rule like per key, right? So we can come in here and we can say if, let's say if, I'm going to grab this, oops, variable, if is greater than, this takes two parameters. So it's the larger string, it's the larger string is greater than the smaller string. So we're going to say if the value from this data container is larger than, we'll say 3.
Yeah, so you're filtering.
Yeah, so I'm going to end up filtering this so that we get, so that we build this data structure where it only includes the names where the value is greater than 3. So we should just have Phoenix and Atlas. If I run that, there we go. Atlas and Phoenix. So I'm just going to take an extra copy of this from before doing that filtering. So that was that one. Let me see what else I had here. So there was another question that has come up a few times that I've seen or people have asked, which is about testing CFEngine policy. How can you test it when you're upgrading to make sure that something is or isn't working the same way that it was before you were testing? We have we obviously have, well, we have several testing frameworks for testing CFEngine itself. And we have a lot of policy that tests CFEngine policy behavior as well. So one of the things that's in our test framework, which is probably not super reusable by other people easily, but is kind of similar. Let me bring this up. Is kind of just this bundle agent init test. So just this little pattern. And often if somebody asks a question that I'm answering on the mailing list or somewhere else, I end up reusing just this simple pattern over and over, because a lot of times somebody has something that, starts with some existing state, and then they're trying to do something to get to some end state. So you need to kind of initialize your environment, your test, and then exercise the thing that you want to exercise, and then check kind of the results of that. So this pattern is super useful for that. So I'll write this, and then we can do reports, stop bundle. now when I run this, we just get the bundles emitted back out in the order that they're run. So that just gives you this little framework to kind of use when you're going to do some kind of testing. But there is in the master files policy framework, there is libtesting.cf. So let me, I've got this over here. And this this library, excuse me, is useful. Boost this up again. Is useful for emitting your test result information in either TAP or JUnit format, which is useful if you want to maybe have some policy that's run as part of a CI system, and then that CI system can interpret those results and then reuse them to look pretty. Of course, you can just check something and emit pass or fail without doing anything special. But if we were to use this lib testing, we can do that here. So in init, let's make sure that we have file temp test file.txt. And before things, so we want to make sure that this exists. Default local DCP, and then temp starting state.txt. So we've got some file here that we are going to initialize, and it's kind of our expected starting state. And then, so maybe we should do that. Let's see here. I have a example. Let's see. Just looking through some notes that I made.
Can you zoom up a smidge?
Yeah, I can.
Cool.
Better?
Yep, that's better.
So here is, I'm just creating this file manually right now.
It's like your test input file.
Yeah, test input, right? So we've got this text file. This is what it looks like to begin with. And we are then going to, so we're going to copy that initial state file to the file that we're going to modify. And we're also going to have an expected end state. So here, we'll say expected end state.txt. Boost this up a bit.
Yep.
Going to be, whoops. So then let's do. All right, so what we're going to test is that when we start with a file like this, it ends up looking like this at the end. So let me move this a little bit that way. Okay. Let me get rid of this reports. So we've got init, which is going to get that test file into place. And then we are going to make sure that that line exists. And for that, we can just use like lines present from the standard library. So we'll do files. And we'll say temp test file dot text. And this is going to be using edit line, default namespace, lines present. And we're going to make sure that that string exists in the file. And since we're starting off with a known state and we have an expected end state, we're just testing that, of course, by default, that this is going to append that line to the file. And then we need to check that it is as we expect in the end.
This is like your cert.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like a setup. Test is the test itself, and check is like the assert.
So let's see here. I've got so we're going to make sure that we've got all the required files in place to do what we need to do before we check the thing. So the test file exists and the expected end state. Both of those things need to exist before we start checking something. And then we'll define a class, edit line, default, lines, present. Okay. And so we're going to define this class if we're going to delay the definition of this class, because CFEngine is, excuse me, eager about defining classes, right? It'll do it as part of pre-eval. So that's why I'm explicitly putting this delay in there to make sure that it doesn't happen until the test runs, until this bundle runs. So then we're going to say test check required files. And this up here. Okay, let's see here. So we actually want this class to be a namespace scoped so that it can be seen from other bundles, because we're going to use that testing library to emit the test output. And we are going to say that we want this class defined if this expression evaluates to true, which is going to be return 0. And I'm going to, excuse me. So I'm going to use diff to check temp test file.
String comp and like read file also.
Yeah, we can do that. Let's try it.
I'm just, there are some alternatives always. I just
Yeah.
did in the test that I wrote for that classes matching thing. I did a string comp and read file for the before and after.
Yeah, no, this is good. This doesn't even rely on diff, so this is better than what I had in my notes.
Cool.
So then we'll read also temp expected end state. And that's it, right? Let me, I don't need to see those files anymore. I got that, and that's that. That's right. So now we're going to use the lib testing stuff. So we're going to be making methods calls to those bundles. So we're going to register the test. that syntax there. I don't want to indent back for me. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, there's an error here. Return 0. Ah, I don't need to return 0.
Right, yeah, right. It's a string comp. I got you.
Awesome. Better. All right, so now, there's still an error. I'm missing
a paren.
a paren. There we go. Now, that's better. So I'm going to register this this test for appending a missing line. So we're going to use the testing okay if, and then we're going to say edit line default lines present okay. And then we've got like a message. So test that bundle edit line default lines line present and the line that is missing. And we have excuse me, trace. I'm not sure what that is exactly used for. And then we have the output type. So I want to use JUnit for that. So if your test has multiple tests, if your plan has multiple tests in it, you would register this for each one of these different test cases that's part of your plan. And then we just need to do the report. So JUnit report, we'll say use bundle testing JUnit report. Write it out to this XML file. And then we can have reports that just spit this back out of this form mode. We can say the file. All right, so we're just to recap here what we're doing. We've got our body file control where we're going to load this testing library. And since we're using edit line bundles and copy from, we're going to load the files part of the standard library. It actually loads libcommon, which is used for, I think, print file. Yeah, for print file. That's what my comment says. When this runs, it's going to run init test then check. And init is just going to set up our, testing environment case. And then test is going to actually make sure that the line exists. And then we check our assumptions. And then we're going to take a look at the JUnit report at the end of that. So let me delete all these extra. So if I run this, oh, conflicting arity call, bundle testing, okay, expected 5, given 4.
Oh, right.
I think there's another one here, and I don't remember what that's for. You can look it up, but boom, there we go. All right, so we can see that the test ran. It copied our starting state to the test file, gave it the 600. It updated this to make sure that this line got inserted. And this is the line that was actually inserted. It edited that file, and then we get our output. Oh, testing JUnit report was apparently not defined. Okay, so the testing J unit. Oh, it's because I can't spell. My mistake. JUNIT. Let's try that again. All right. So now we have our report that gets emitted, and we can see here that failed.
Hmm.
Or class updated rendering. Fail message. Not okay. So there is some difference.
Okay. Do you have the files just sitting there that you can diff?
Yeah. Testing. What is it? What do I call that?
Yeah, I don't remember. Testing.
Test file. Test dash file. Dot text and temp expected end state. Nope.
Okay.
Those are the same.
So is the string comp that I told you to do not right? Is there a typo in the file names? So that's the class. If the file exists at test check required files. What's the test check required files?
It's just this list of files to
Okay.
delay.
Let's just file attempt test and then state checks. And what does the output look like again?
And then output is down here.
Okay. All right. So insert the promise line.
You know what?
Hmm?
I think so here's I think this is what it is. Let me come into here and let's add a cleanup.
Last name.
I think that the issue is pre-eval is eager, and I didn't clean up that test file.
Yeah.
So
when I made a test like this, I did have a init step that deleted a file. Yeah, right.
we're gonna delete tidy, and then we're gonna say cleanup.
Hmm.
All right. So now that we have cleanup, let me run this again.
Still failed.
Oh, it still failed.
Testing.
Test case. Failure message. I'm not sure. You know, I bet that there's well, I wonder if there's a difference between what it's reading for new lines. What
Maybe
happens
yeah.
Oh, what?
I was gonna say maybe you could revert to the way you did it before with the diffs.
Yeah, let me do that. So returns returns 0.
Yeah, because when I did mine, I was printing out both, and I had to go through and I expected that the new lines would be wrong based on so that I had to like check them and make them the right way that they should be expected.
User bin diff. Temp test file dot text. Temp expected and state dot text. And oh, I can never remember the order. Is it like this?
Yeah, for
I just redirect that. I don't need the output.
but you do need a greater than to send standard out to dev null. You sent error to 1, but you didn't send one to dev null. Yeah. Nailed it.
All right,
Let's try
run that
that.
again. Let's see what we get. Failed. Well, that's what happens when you do live demos.
Yeah.
Let me see
That's
here.
what happens when you develop code and develop tests. It's real.
All
Let's see.
right, so let me look here. Um, hmm,
So it's testing for class edit line default lines present. Okay. So can you double check that that's the class that you're setting, and is the scope okay for that other bundle?
what if I cheat? What if I just cheat?
Cheat. Okay.
What if I use my notes?
Oh man, that's a great idea.
Use my notes instead of using them for reference. How about that?
Right.
Looks really similar.
Yeah, the
Let's initialize the file. Lines present. And then it uses diff.
see there, yeah, see your fourth parameter, that's for your thing there, right? I think you got the
Uh,
wrong. Yeah,
well, yeah, I put the fourth parameter as like a empty string, so I didn't get like a nice error result.
right. So maybe copy paste that chunk or something, or just run it
Yeah,
and
let's see. Hopefully it'll pass. Adding testing report for class. What? Failure message.
okay.
Well, that's an amazing fail.
Yeah.
Hmm. Class editing position 1. Updated the rendering. It didn't
Mhm.
pass.
So go back and look at your edit that class name, edit line default lines present. Okay. Where do you define that in your policy?
Define it here, but there's another difference in, I think, and this is one that has bitten me before.
Mhm.
When preparing like these expected the expected versus the end, I just did this in my editor kind of on the fly, and I
Mhm.
didn't make sure that those actually had the proper line endings. So let
Okay.
me make sure that so we got temp, test, file, whoops, test, no, starting state, expected end state. Okay, so now I've got these files. I think I typoed the expected end state because I saw a typo version in there.
Okay.
Let me run it.
Cool.
Oh, tap message. Hey, it didn't fail. This time it passed. So yeah, make sure that your files are what you expect. I am notorious for typos. Well, that was a fun exercise in exactly what it's like to write test cases for just about anything.
I mean, that's a very classic problem in writing unit tests is, the expectations have to match exactly. And,
Yeah,
that's just a lot of times you typo it or something like that. And
simple mistakes.
Once you
Yeah.
get it in there, then it's good. But before you get it in there, sometimes it's mysterious because you're like, oh no, I typed it right. And then you
Yeah.
don't see it anymore. So probably what you needed to do was start reading the expected and actual backwards. That's what you needed to do.
Yeah.
Right. In order to be careful, you read it backwards.
Well, and I could have also typically what I'll do when I'm writing these types of things is I didn't instrument this for like a whole lot of debug output.
Right.
Right. So typically, like if I fail this, then I would also um, print out like the contents of each of those files. And then very quickly I would see that, oh, that file was empty because it didn't exist
Yeah.
or whatever. So well, that was a exciting little adventure. Took longer than I expected.
That's okay.
There were a couple other things that I kind of had on the list to go over, but I think we're gonna end up hitting on our time for it.
Yeah, I think we're good for time right now. So we could just maybe mention those things or
Yeah,
something. Close it
yeah,
up.
Maybe a part two.
Yeah.
maybe a part two. There's one that just came up and I hadn't had time to actually play with it. I only spent a couple of minutes thinking about it, and so maybe we can think about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which was how can I inventory all Python modules on my system?
Hmm.
So this one came up, and you could use pip, right? The first thought really is to use pip, and the output from what's listed. But the problem gets a little bit more interesting in large environments because you've often got multiple Python environments. You can have many different users that have many different individual environments, and then the question becomes, well, where do I look? How do I know where to even look for all of these things on my system? And I don't know if you had any clever ideas on this, Craig, but the first thing that really came to my mind was to use locate
Mhm.
to find what is it called? Site packages.
Yeah, I think you could probably look for site packages. Yeah, I suppose it depends on how
But
picky.
isn't there another directory? Is it global
Well,
packages?
I think site packages is pretty good. The other thing that you might look for is the init py file, right? Double underscore init underscore dot py, because that'll be the thing that indicates that you've got like a module.
You've got a module.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe.
so my thought was, I mean, obviously you don't want to walk the file system because that would be very expensive to do with CFEngine, and it would tie up the agent, right? The agent's tied up during that time. So like this is one of those cases where, the thing that you're wanting to do needs to kind of be a coordinated effort. You don't want to tie up an agent run for a long period of time while it's just walking the file system. So using something like locate, which maybe reindexes your file system nightly, you can find all of these locations, and then you can have that enumerated list of locations returned to you pretty quickly, and then you can pretty quickly iterate over them and poke and prod at them to kind of get the list of modules that are installed and the directory names, and then from the directory names you can probably extract the versions, if not looking in some other metadata file, or perhaps iterating over those things and using pip and maybe pointing pip at these locations to get the list for each location.
Mhm.
Kind of what
Yeah, I think the init py is probably a pretty good thing to look for. I sent a link in the chat here for the Python documentation on modules or packages rather.
Hmm.
and some talk in there about kind of what is involved, what's there, and whatnot. And then I'm just looking at some random package, and yeah, it's got a version, like double underscore surrounding version thing inside there, like metadata. Um, so that might be like a standard part of it. I don't know if the docs say that or not. Um,
Hmm.
you don't really, but it might still be. Yeah, so there's like some
Yeah.
things.
But yeah, maybe we'll do a part two on this because I don't know. I think this would be a fun rabbit hole to explore.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I'm brave enough to explore it live. Maybe.
Maybe
Uh,
practice slightly.
maybe without, I mean, maybe with notes I could explore it live, but
Yeah.
I don't know. But and then there's another one, and the other one has also come up a handful of times, and that's using classes from the environment inside of Mustache templates when you're providing explicit data, right? So when you prepare a data container for a template, um, so that you're not just using data state. The main benefit of that pattern is that you can decouple your template from your CFEngine and environment, right? They don't have to know about the runtime, bundle names, variable names, anything like that. Somebody who's maintaining the Mustache template doesn't have to know anything about the environment, and you can hand them a much smaller prepared set of data where you're pulling together, you know, things that you need from the environment, but then things that you need from other internal systems, right? Your CMDB here, your other thing over there, what environment you're in, getting them together, and then handing that to the template to do the proper rendering. But being able to use the classes in the template at the same time, um, you need to do some special things to get classes into that data structure. And so I have achieved this in a couple of different ways, but I think it would be a good one to explore, maybe on an episode 2 if people like this one.
Yeah, and data state, for anyone that doesn't know, is a nice way of grabbing all of the vars and classes that are present and putting them into the context of the template. So to take some of that out is a good idea, but to put some of it back in so that you can make choices, do like if else's kind of stuff in the template based on class presence is pretty nice. Yep.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's kind of it for today, at least policy questions. Thanks for coming. And if you enjoyed this, drop us a note somewhere, let us know so that we can consider doing potentially another episode and maybe cover more in-depth kind of these other ones that we didn't have time for today. And if you stick around after the recording, you can hang out and have a drink with us. Thanks, everybody. I think that's episode 27.